The rain was falling hard the night Emily Carter was told to leave her own home. Thunder rolled over the quiet suburban street in New Jersey, and the clock on the wall read just past 2 a.m. Emily stood in the living room, her hands shaking, one resting on her pregnant belly, the other gripping the edge of the sofa to steady herself. Pain came in waves, now deep, sharp, undeniable. "I can't do this anymore," Daniel Carter said, his voice flat, impatient, as if he were ending a bad meeting instead of a marriage. He didn't look worried. He didn't look scared. He looked relieved. Emily stared at him, stunned. "Daniel, I think the baby is coming." He finally looked up, annoyance crossing his face. "That's not my problem. You'll figure it out." Those words cut deeper than the pain in her body. This was the man who once promised to protect her. The man who held her hand when she first told him she was pregnant. Now he stood there like a stranger, already halfway out of their life. "Please," Emily said quietly. "I just need to get to the hospital." Daniel turned away, grabbed his phone, and walked toward the bedroom. "Call a cab," he said over his shoulder. "You're not staying here." The door to the bedroom closed. The sound echoed through the house like a final decision. Emily stood alone. She didn't scream. She didn't cry, not yet. She slowly bent down, picked up her small hospital bag from the corner, and walked to the door. When she stepped outside, cold rain soaked through her thin sweater. The porch light clicked off behind her. That was the moment her old life ended. As the car arrived and pulled away from the house, Emily looked back once, not at Daniel, not at the windows, but at the future she thought she would have. It disappeared into the darkness. What Daniel didn't know, what he never asked, was that 2 weeks earlier, Emily's life had already changed forever. 3 years before that night, Emily believed she was lucky. She met Daniel at a work conference in Chicago where she was a junior project coordinator and he was a rising executive with big plans. He was charming, confident, and made her feel seen. He listened when she talked. He laughed easily. He told her she was different. They married quickly. Emily moved where Daniel's job took them. She put her career second without complaint. She believed marriage meant building something together. At first, it felt right. Then Daniel got promoted. The promotions kept coming, but so did the distance. Late nights became normal. Business trips increased. When Emily asked questions, Daniel brushed them off. "You worry too much." He'd say, "This is for us." When Emily found out she was pregnant, she thought the baby would bring them closer. Daniel smiled, hugged her, even cried a little. For a moment, she believed again. But something had already shifted. Daniel started protecting his phone. His patience grew thin. He criticized small things: how Emily dressed, how she spoke, how she planned the nursery. Love turned into control, and control turned into cold silence. That's when Vanessa appeared. Vanessa was younger, stylish, and worked with Daniel. He mentioned her often, too often. "She's sharp," he said. "Knows how to handle pressure." Emily noticed how his tone changed when he said her name. When Emily finally asked if there was something going on, Daniel laughed. "You're imagining things," he said. "You're emotional because you're pregnant." Emily wanted peace more than answers, so she stayed quiet. 2 weeks before the night she was thrown out, Emily received a letter in the mail. It was from a law firm in Boston. At first, she thought it was a mistake. The letter explained that her grandmother, someone Emily barely knew, someone who had been distant her whole life, had passed away. Emily hadn't even known she was sick. What shocked her wasn't the death. 'Twas the inheritance. Her grandmother had left Emily everything. Investments, property, accounts, the total value $10 million. Emily sat at the kitchen table for a long time staring at the papers. Her hands trembled, not from excitement, but from disbelief. She hadn't told Daniel. Something inside her said to wait, to think, to protect herself. That instinct saved her. The hospital lights were bright and cold as Emily was rushed inside that night. She was exhausted, scared, and alone, but she didn't break. Hours later, she held her son for the first time. He was small, warm, and real. She named him Noah. As she looked at his face, Emily made a promise to him and to herself. She would never let anyone make them feel unwanted again. Come, he didn't call, he didn't ask. Emily didn't chase him. After leaving the hospital, she stayed briefly with a friend, then quietly filed for separation. She didn't ask for money. She didn't argue. She let Daniel think she had nothing left. Then she left. Emily moved across the country to Seattle, where no one knew her past. She hired professionals to manage the inheritance. She learned, she planned, she stayed patient. Money didn't change her. It gave her safety. With time, Emily started a consulting firm. She kept it small at first. She focused on ethics, structure, and trust, things she once lost. Clients respected her calm authority. The company grew steadily. Emily worked hard, but she also built a life. She watched Noah grow. She smiled again. She healed. Daniel faded into a distant memory. Or so she thought. One morning, 3 years later, Emily sat in her glass-walled office reviewing applications. Her assistant stepped in and placed a resume on the desk. "This candidate has strong references," she said. "She's applying for the executive assistant role." Emily glanced down casually, her breath caught. Vanessa read. The name stared back at her like a quiet challenge. Emily didn't react outwardly. She simply closed the file and leaned back. In her chair, scheduled the interview, she said calmly, "Cross the country." Vanessa had no idea that the woman she was about to meet was the same woman who stood in the rain that night, pregnant, abandoned, and silent. And Daniel still believed Emily had lost everything. Part 1 of the story ends here, with fate slowly turning its wheel. The moment Vanessa Reed walked into Emily's office for her interview, Emily felt a calm thrill she hadn't experienced in years. It wasn't anger or revenge, it was quiet power. Vanessa, polished and confident, had no idea who sat across from her. Her smile was rehearsed, her answers practiced. She was charming, intelligent, ambitious, everything Emily had once admired in Daniel before he betrayed her. Emily studied her, every gesture, every blink, every careful word. She asked about experience, about priorities, about loyalty. Vanessa answered perfectly. Emily nodded occasionally, offering neutral encouragement. She didn't reveal the truth, didn't give a hint, not yet. When the interview ended, Emily thanked her politely and said, "We'll be in touch." Vanessa left with a bright smile, unaware that the woman who had just questioned her was the same woman who had been abandoned by her husband while giving birth. Emily watched her leave, a quiet sense of satisfaction settling in. She didn't need to speak. Life itself would tell the story. Vanessa started work the next week. She was professional, efficient, eager to impress. She had no idea she was stepping into a world Emily controlled. A world where Emily had built something Daniel could never touch. Emily watched from a distance, learning everything about Vanessa. Her routines, her strengths, her weaknesses, the way she responded to stress. Days turned into weeks. Vanessa praised Emily openly to colleagues. "You're amazing," she said, almost daily. "You're inspiring, brilliant, and self-made." Emily smiled quietly. That was all she needed for now. Vanessa didn't know that every compliment she gave, every admiration she expressed, was feeding the pride of the very person she thought she had surpassed. Then came the day Daniel walked into the office. Emily had been preparing for a meeting when her assistant whispered, "Mr. Carter is here." She froze, not with fear, but with anticipation. Daniel's eyes scanned the office, and when they landed on Emily, his face went pale. His jaw tightened. He stepped forward as if approaching a ghost. Emily's voice was unsteady, filled with disbelief. The man who had once dismissed her pain now couldn't hide the shock. Emily stood calm and poised. Her tone was quiet, but each word carried control. Hello, Daniel. Welcome to my company. Vanessa, who had just walked into the room behind him, froze. Recognition, confusion, fear, every emotion crossed her face in an instant. She had no idea of Emily's identity, no idea that this seemingly quiet woman had once been abandoned and underestimated. Over the next few weeks, Emily's control over the situation only grew. She never humiliated Daniel, never shouted, never exposed him. She let her life speak for itself. Her firm thrived. Her clients respected her judgment. Noah thrived, growing surrounded by love and stability, far removed from the chaos of the past. Meanwhile, Daniel's life slowly unraveled. His career, once rising, stagnated. His marriage with Vanessa grew tense. She was ambitious, but she resented the sacrifices she had to make to manage his demands. She complained about Daniel's temper, about his lack of vision, about the long hours he put into businesses that barely turned a profit. She had no idea Emily was watching, learning, quietly guiding from the shadows. Emily's plan was never about revenge in the traditional sense. She didn't want Daniel humiliated. She wanted control. She wanted security for herself and Noah. She wanted her life to reflect her worth. Every meeting she led, every decision she made, every client she impressed reinforced her position. And every time Daniel looked at her, he felt a mix of disbelief and regret. One evening, Daniel tried to reach out. He called, left a message, but Emily didn't respond immediately. She let him wait, let him feel a fraction of the helplessness she had felt. When she finally returned the call, her tone was polite, professional, but unshakably firm. "I appreciate your concern," she said, "but everything is under control. Noah and I are doing very well." Daniel stammered, trying to explain, trying to justify. Emily listened, letting him speak, letting him expose his mistakes without interference. She didn't argue. She didn't defend herself. She simply let him confront the reality he had ignored for so long. Vanessa's realization came slowly. She began noticing Emily's quiet authority, her careful decisions, the respect everyone showed her. Small things: a client insisting on speaking with Emily, employees following her lead, colleagues deferring to her judgment, revealed the truth. When she finally connected the dots, Vanessa's shock was complete. The woman she had unknowingly stepped into as an assistant was the same woman Daniel had abandoned. Emily observed silently as Vanessa struggled with the realization. She didn't rub it in. She didn't need to. The world had corrected itself. Daniel's arrogance and cruelty had returned to him in subtle ways. He couldn't claim ignorance anymore, couldn't pretend he was still in control. Months passed. Emily's company expanded further. Her life was structured, peaceful, and fulfilling. Noah grew strong and happy, surrounded by stability and love. Emily made new friends, formed new connections, and slowly opened herself to possibilities she had once thought closed forever. She learned that happiness didn't come from proving a point. It came from building a life she could be proud of. Daniel reached out one last time, pleading, begging, trying to reconcile. "Okay." Emily met him once in her office with calm eyes and a steady voice. "I'm sorry, Emily," he said. "I didn't realize what I had." Emily smiled, but it was a smile of closure, not temptation. "You made your choices, Daniel. I made mine. Noah and I are happy. That's all that matters." He left quietly, defeated not by words but by life itself. The man who had once controlled her no longer had any influence over her world. Emily had everything she needed: not revenge, not money, not power over anyone, but control over her own story. She sat at her desk later that evening, looking out over the city skyline. Noah's laughter echoed in her mind. She remembered the nights she cried alone, the nights she thought she had nothing left. And she realized how far she had come. Her phone buzzed with a message from Vanessa, asking for guidance on a project. Emily replied promptly, professionally. She had no intention of embarrassing her assistant unnecessarily. Life had already balanced itself. The most powerful moment came quietly. Emily walked through her office the next morning, past employees who greeted her warmly, past clients who trusted her implicitly. She reached her own desk, placed her hand on it, and felt something stronger than triumph. She felt peace. Emily had learned the greatest lesson. You don't need to hurt anyone to succeed. You don't need revenge to feel strong. All you need is determination, courage, and the wisdom to rise when life knocks you down. And in that quiet strength, Emily found something more valuable than money or recognition. She found herself. Noah ran through the office garden one late afternoon, chasing the golden sunlight. Emily watched him, smiling, her heart full. She thought of the night she was abandoned in the rain, the fear, the pain, and the loneliness. That night was over, long behind her. The storm had passed, and in its place, she had built a life of love, respect, and quiet power. Daniel and Vanessa could never take that away, because Emily Carter wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. And this time, she was unstoppable.